When the WRX first came out, I made a video on it saying that I wasn't a fan of this design, and that sort of holds true today, but I think it's grown on me quite a bit. And I found this company here that actually you can send in the fender flares and have them painted in the body color of whatever color you have on your WRX, the original colors. And that's one of the big changes that I wanted to see on the WRX, to not have these be black. And this looks so much better, specifically in white, because we don't have this stark contrast here between the body and the flares, and specifically also in blue. All that's missing here now when we have these body color is this STI wing. We need some sort of wing on a Subaru Impreza, even if it's just a WRX. To me, it's never gonna be complete unless we have a big wing on the rear. I'm gonna show you a couple of redesigns I made on the new WRX in just a minute. But I also want to compare the 2018 to the 2022 and let you know now, what with the information I have now, what I think about the new WRX. Because look at this, what these go for today. It's a pretty good deal. Here's one for $33,983, and it's in World Rally Blue, which is probably the color that I would pick for this, and it looks pretty good. You have the upgraded wheels as well, and this is the premium, as you can see, and it is a manual transmission for $34,000, completely brand new. To me, that's a fantastic deal. You also get the 271 horsepower turbocharged 2.4 liter flat 4 in addition to the manual transmission. A fantastic deal for $34,000. And I have a feeling you don't need to do a lot to make these around 320 horsepower. I think there's just some tiny mods probably that you need to do, and boom, you have a boost of 30-40 horsepower with these cars. Let's have a look at the front, side, rear, and also the interior of the 2018, comparing it to the 2022 WRX. And I really think this is a good transition from the old one to the new one, because we still have, for example, this very important LED that is the Subaru trademark light, now is still intact in the new 2022 model right here, but it is a lot more chiseled and it's a lot smaller as well. I thought these headlights, they were way too small for the overall front fascia of the new WRX. But after a while, I've seen this a lot now out in the wild on the streets, and it actually doesn't look bad in the front end. The thing with the Subaru Impreza, it's never supposed to be a beautiful car. And I think that was my problem when I first saw it, that I was going after beauty in this car. But the Impreza has never been a beautiful car. It's a rally-inspired car that has design and styling that follows a function. And I think that in itself has some value in it. And in addition, that it is an old school design. The interior has analog gauge clusters. You also have a manual transmission. It's a pretty old school design. And I think comparing it to modern cars today, that in itself should also have some sort of value to it, being an old enthusiast car in a new shell. So looking at the lower part of this bumper, I do prefer this old bumper where you have the vertical lines for the intakes in the middle and in the side here, in comparison to this a little more stylized way of having the same intakes right here. I think this feels more purposeful, but this doesn't look bad at all and still has a lot of Subaru in it. I also like that they extended the grille a little bit further down and made it a little bigger here, as you can see, stretching further down into the bumper. But as you can see here, what's missing here is definitely, this is the STI, but I still want to have some sort of wing onto this design to complete it and to balance out the volumes of the rear end. So looking at it at a side view, and this is where it gets interesting with these body colored, non-body colored fender flares in the front and the back. So you can see in the old one, we have this big muscle here. I love this line that goes into the door, and you have an outlet here, air outlet, which I think is functional. And then this goes down in the side skirt right here. You also have a nice line over the rear axle, which kind of reduces the weight visually in this piece. And on top of that, you have this gorgeous wing in the rear end as well. So comparing this to the new one down here, first of all, what I would definitely change is, are these fender flares matters. I think I would have them in body colored. It doesn't, I don't know if it kind of suits a WRX to have them be a little bit more off-road looking, because this is, as you know, based on a rally or inspired by a rally car, so this sort of makes sense. But from a visual standpoint, I would still want to have these be body colored and maybe even have them be rounded completely like we have in the previous 2018 generation. But we still have this line intact, which I think is a very important line to reduce the mass in the rear end, but it does definitely lack a wing up here. We need to plant a wing. Doesn't matter what type of wing, just add something on here to make it into a proper Subaru Impreza WRX. The overall proportions are pretty much the same. We have a typical sedan style. It looks pretty compact and it still looks good, these proportions in the 2022 model. Looking at the rear end, so this is what I wanted to focus on in my redesign, one of my redesigns that I did. And the problem that I had with the new WRX is mostly related to the rear end, and I'm gonna let you know why. Look at the previous generation up here, how this integration of the diffuser is integrated down here, and now compare this diffuser to the new one. I don't understand why all of this cheap looking plastic has to stick up and take up so much real estate in the rear end. It's almost halfway up of just black plastic, and what I want to do with this is to reduce this height and then also make the exhaust pipes feel like they actually fit in here, so lift them up a little bit. And these taillights to me looked a little static, so I wanted to have them be a little squintier and maybe stretch them out a couple of inches to each side to make it look wider than what it is. And I'm gonna show you that redesign right here so you can see my thoughts behind this design of the new WRX and how very subtle small changes can actually make a massive improvement on the overall perception of this new design. So let's have a look at the interior last but definitely not least. And as I said, this is what I like about Subaru, and this is what I like, that they keep the prices down. So this is an affordable performance car, and yes, it's not the best looking car, but honestly to me it doesn't really matter. I still want this car for the simple reason that we have a 6-speed manual transmission. We do have a nice, beautiful, cozy house right here for the gauge clusters, and they are still analog in 2023. You have analog gauge cluster in a brand new Subaru, but it still looks modern. You don't need more than this, and I think we need more cars like this that has going back to the basics and don't add more stuff that's gonna increase the price that a lot of people don't really care for. And I think that's what makes Subaru special overall. They have very good value for what you get, and they are super effective in the snow as well and in all kinds of weather. So I don't know, if I'm looking for a cheap, fun car to drive that still has all the modern features that you want, Bluetooth, touchscreens and so on, it really is a really good deal, the new WRX. So after this winter, I might be looking into something like this for the fun roads that we have here in Colorado. It's between, I would say, this or a Golf GTI/R, maybe a 2020 Golf R would also be a cool consideration in this segment. But the main takeaway here for me is my perspective of how I look at the WRX. I don't look it for the beauty, but I do look at it now from a perspective of they still holding true to what car enthusiasts really want in a new car.